Tommy Stewart, how the devil are you?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on Why Cricket, Tom. How are you?
I'm all right. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the first episode, the first guest on the first episode.
I know, bloody hell! What a compliment. I know you
Well,
tried for like Felix White or someone, and this is where you got to. So I'm happy nonetheless.
well, you say that. I think when we first kind of came up with the concept for this, you were very high up the list because we kind of want to explore why people are interested in cricket, what keeps bringing them back to cricket, but also kind of look deeper into the sliding doors moment that Adam and I must have had at some point. Because despite being good friends, something happened in my life that put me on the cricket path, and the very same didn't happen to Adam. And to be perfectly honest, if I made a dating profile for both of you, I think it would look pretty similar.
Wow.
Well, creative men with podcast experience,
Yes.
um, musicians, very capable of strong facial hair choices. But you went down the cricket wormhole, and I think Adam at this point is probably wormhole adjacent.
Yeah, I like that's how I like to sort of tell people where I'm at. But yeah, Wim adjacent.
Sounds
Hello.
about
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
That works.
yeah.
So I think should probably start off with what could be a very big question, Tommy. But why cricket? What keeps bringing you back to the game?
Why cricket? Okay. Well, first of all, I think to reference the great cricketer, another great cricket podcast. Uh, they they always say safety, but they're specifically referencing the Australian, excuse me, the great Australian cricket team of the '90s and the early 2000s. But uh, with England, I suppose up until now, up until the past sort of 5 or 6 years, especially obviously the white ball team winning two World Cups, um, it isn't safety with England, but I think there's safety in like the smells, the atmosphere, the sort of the humdrum murmur, whether there's like 50 people at a match, whether there's 25,000 people there. Um, and I think for me, and I think this is the same for a lot of people, maybe not for everyone, but for me, a big part of it is like the relationship with my dad and how it was. I always remember him saying, because I was like mad into football, mad into cricket when I was growing up. And all my family, like my brothers and my dad, were all like massively into sport as well. But I always remember him saying that cricket is like Test cricket specifically is the best sport. To be honest, I don't know if he thinks that anymore. He loves rugby, but he was always too scared to play it. Like he's a bit of a wuss. But
It's
he
fair
was
enough.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I broke my arm playing rugby when I was 15 and never touched a rugby ball since. Um, and apparently, they used to use me. My brother said the year after I'd left the school, I think I was in year 10. He was a couple of years below me, but they used me as an example of how to not pick up a ball from a scrum because apparently it was my own fault that I broke my arm. But
What a
so
bad one looks like. That's
the less said about rugby, the better. But yeah, it's always bonded me and my dad. I've got so many pictures of like me in like an England one day shirt, the classic Vodafone one that I always remember Darren Goff wearing in the '90s and early 2000s. And yeah, it relaxes me when I wrote an article about this for the Metro back in 2019, and I went on Five Live to talk about it. And when I had a really bad breakup and I was going through some really rough times mental health wise, for some reason it was like I'd always been into cricket, and at uni I'd stay up and watch the Ashes in Australia, like when, and it was almost like I was hiding my sexuality or something. Like I was at uni, you're trying to impress people, and I just didn't think anyone would think it was cool, which they wouldn't have. Let's face it. But so I was always keeping an eye on it. But in 2019, I proper fully immersed myself back into it and started playing again, and you know became a member of Lancashire again. And so yeah, it's just always it's kind of like a backbone. It's like a safety blanket that's just always there when you need it, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think that makes perfect sense. I think because I was thinking the other day about my relationship with football and how that kind of developed, and that was definitely through my relationship with my dad. But cricket was a bit more of a kind of a journey of self discovery in a way that I've kind of gone on. And I think what you were saying about when you're going through a really tough time, when especially since I've started working at home in the past 2 years, it's been such a good way of kind of like plotting out your day.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, because there's always cricket going on, isn't there, at the moment? Like the last, I feel like it's we've had how many, like, what, since the pandemic we've had two T20 World Cups. We've had the women's T20 World Cup recently, and now there's all these growing leagues and all these short, like, T20 leagues, etc., South Africa and Dubai or whatever. So there's just always some, like, and it's a great thing to just have on mute. Like, it's a great thing to just, because I sit here and the TV's there. I work from here. I'm like you, Tom. I work from home, like, exclusively now, pretty much. And it's just nice to have it there in the background, like, and it's just sort of simmering on. Even last night, I fell asleep to it. So yeah, I
See,
definitely.
I do that with Homes Under the Hammer now, but that's obviously that's comforting, but it can be a bit stressful seeing Deon Dublin in Stafford again.
Does that mean you fall asleep to it? Are you saying?
No, I really don't. I mean, at 11 a.m. I fall asleep. Clock off.
I was going to say
Wait for the repeats.
it's even funnier, the implication that
Yeah,
you go on iPlayer before you go to bed, and you're like, oh, what's
yeah.
good stuff on there? There's People Just Do Nothing. There's Match of the Day. No, you know what? I'm going to stick on.
I'm going to go back through the archives and see see how property prices in 2014 were as opposed to now. But yeah, I mean, having worked with Tom in his previous job role, which we're both now part of, so obviously we're off the record. I remember you'd sometimes come in and say, "Oh yeah, I've been up since 5 watching something," and I'd hear names of teams and go, oh, "Okay." It was very alien to me, but it was something that you could obviously, as you say, do within your day as part of your working day as a sort of comforting background murmur,
Yeah,
which sounds nice. I can vibe with that.
am I
That's a
winning you
black hole I could dive down.
in the first 8 minutes? I'm already winning you over.
It might have been Darren Goff and Vodafone and sort of
You
leading me
just
down that alley.
that hair transplant he's had. Can't blame you.
Yeah, that's how I know his work. I didn't realize he was a cricketer until just this conversation.
Massive Strictly fan.
I think, I mean, there's definitely that kind of comfort in like the humdrum and just the general like noise and chatter that you hear around, whether it's cricket commentary on the radio, or you've got it on TV. But in terms of getting into that as a neutral, I don't know whether you need some kind of big moment that ties you to it.
Yeah,
And like talking about like links to family and how family can get you into sport. Obviously, Adam, you're a big Everton fan, and your dad's an Everton fan, your sister's an Everton fan.
sorry to
Is
hear
was
that, mate.
Yeah, it's the opposite of comfort. But yeah,
yeah.
I think that is usually a neat way in. But then I guess talking about those big events, I guess as a kid, before that kind of familial connection takes over, as a football fan, you tended to have. I mean, for myself, like Euro '96, being sort of 6, 7 years old, and everyone's playing in the playground. But for me, there's not really been that kind of watershed cricket moment yet in my life.
Did,
May,
did,
may,
did you watch the 2005 Ashes? Do you remember that being on?
I don't
No.
know. I don't remember it being on. No.
Because that's the one that, like, I tend to, if I'm asking people about cricket, or that's the one that everyone seems to have remembered
Mm,
or watched.
yeah, I feel like maybe I just sort of maybe it was too late. I was too far gone. I would have been what 16, so
You would have been following whoever. I'm trying to think who Everton would have signed in 2005. You probably be following that, the transfer rumours.
We didn't really buy a lot of people back then. It's gone full circle in my
That's the Moyes era, wasn't it?
yeah, probably like Pistone or someone like that.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe Kevin Kilban, someone like that. So I'm just ruining my cricket podcast already by
me and Mark do
by
it.
naming two left backs who play for Everton. But
Me and Mark do that all the time with Murley, and like once we had a guest on, it was God, I should really remember his name. It was an Australian cricket journalist, like quite a well-regarded one, and we made a football comparison in the podcast, and he was just like, "Mate, why are you doing that? People aren't listening to this for fucking football, mate. This is for people listening to this and listening for cricket." And he's like, "I listened to one of your other episodes, and you did it there," and I was like, "It's relatable, isn't it? You can
Yeah.
you can draw lines between football and cricket."
Absolutely, and that was a solid Tim Cahill, so I really appreciate that as well.
I think you definitely can draw lines between them, but I think it's interesting what you said, Tommy, about cricket being something that you felt you almost had to hide.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't like, I don't know. I guess it's not sort of it's not complementary to university lifestyle, other than when. So I was at uni 2009 to 2012. So that great England team, when they got number one in the world and they won that Ashes series away from home, I will have watched a lot of that. And luckily, with the time difference with cricket in Australia, ironically being awake till 4 or 5 a.m. and sleeping in, it was actually quite suited that the cricket thing. But I just didn't. I don't think I ever, not in my memory anyway, I don't think I ever had a conversation about cricket at uni. And like, I guess a part of it is age. Like, I don't know about you guys, but the older you, like, I was 33 on Saturday, and I've got to the point where I don't care really about like how I look or how I'm perceived, what I wear. Like, obviously,
It's an audio medium, but
I was a jest.
yeah.
But yeah, the older you get, the less you can, and I find you go back to, like, I've started reading the past couple of years. I've started just reading books, like just consuming books again, like I did when I was a kid, and I think you sort of just go back to those sort of, not even primal instincts, just the stuff that you loved, like the things that you found fun as a kid, and that's what I find with everything as I'm getting older. And I don't know why, like it was in, I don't know why during that breakup and like basically mental breakdown I had in 2019, that cricket was just the thing that, like, obviously, and it was a good year to get like fully back immersed into it, because obviously
For sure, yeah.
the World Cup win, and I think maybe I got the job on Tailenders that year as well. So so a part of it was, just getting back into it for my job and for work. And then I was like, I just remembered everything. I just remember, it all came back to me, why I loved it and why I was annoyed at myself, to be honest, because I was like, rather than playing 7-a-side and 5-a-side to a very poor level for the past 10 years and like knocking about different groups and just trying to get a game here and there, I could have been playing cricket, which I find a lot less stressful. I'm better at it. Like, we all like to do things we're actually like okay at. I'm not great, but I'm definitely better than I am at football. But at least cricket's a game that you can sort of play till you're in your 50s, I guess. So I've always got it now.
Yeah, the thing about, like, obviously you mentioned at uni, I kind of had a similar experience in secondary school, but I think obviously it's quite a formative time. You're trying to kind of form an identity for yourself and say, this is who I am. And I was also at the time quite into football, but also into music. And I was in a very, I don't want to say average, but we thought we were the Strokes and we weren't the Strokes, kind of band.
The words of
and
Alex Turner, I just wanted to be one of the Strokes.
Exactly. I've got that artwork somewhere in this house.
Great.
But yeah, it's kind of dueling identities, really, or to some extent with cricket. Cricket wasn't really an identity. That you can be in the playground, you can be in the canteen in sixth form or secondary school, and be you're one of the indie kids that's into bands. But there aren't any tables of cricket kids.
No, there's not, is there? And I feel like there should be, and I'm finding it. Excuse me, I'm finding it now because one of the sad things I find with cricket, even though the game's expanding and the TV deals are massive, like with I think the IPL, the latest IPL TV deal is actually bigger than the Premier League one, which is crazy. But then I play cricket with a load of Pakistani blokes, and their kids, like, and I've seen their kids growing over the past 3 years or so, and they're even getting less and less into cricket, and they want to bring a football to kick around on the side of the pitch. And then my nephews, when they were around 4 or 5, I've got four nephews, 5 nephews, fucking hell. I don't know
Just
which
had another one.
Excuse me, but yeah, and when they were 3 or 4, and I don't know if it's just like they're amazed by everything, and they're sort of want to impress their weird bald uncle with a moustache or whatever, or find him intimidating. Who knows? Um, they seem to love it, and they seem to sort of be very happy to just throw a ball or hit a ball. If I give them a few underarms with a tennis ball or whatever. I bought them all cricket. Well, one of them's too old now. He's like, I think it's too late for him to get into cricket. He's 11. He loves Man United. He loves.
So Adam, you've got no chance now.
I know, yeah, like
Yeah,
22 years too late.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, we will try. We will try. But
Yeah.
you're old enough now to appreciate. But he's at that age that you were talking about, Tom, that formative age, where he's in year 7. He's getting into girls. He's getting into clothes. He's getting into music, and cricket is no part of that. Whereas football is. Like, it's difficult to explain why. I guess we kind of know why. There's a lot of sort of, the very sort of dated. As much as we want to. Okay, a better way of saying it is, if I ask him if he knows a cricketer, or if I say, do you know who Ben Stokes is, or Jimmy Anderson, even the most famous cricketers, he doesn't have a clue. And the younger ones, like I was saying, when they were younger, they were into it. And then they get to 6, 7, 8, and they just get more into football or more into games, etc. So I don't know. I think a fundamental problem with it is that it's quite complicated, even though it shouldn't be. And we as cricket fans and cricket journalists like myself, we do overcomplicate it, and it just needs to be simplified. And I guess that's what the 100 is there for. So, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the funny things, isn't it? Because I can't remember who said it or where I read it, but there's the quote that no other sport talks about itself to itself as much as cricket. Which I think sums it up perfectly. But I also think once you are into it, the kind of idiosyncrasies and the kind of all the little bits that even people who are into it can't explain to each other become part of the charm. But it is also a barrier to new people getting involved.
It's quite gatekeepy. It is quite gatekeepy. How do you find that, Adam? Like, what do you think the main stumbling block is for you in terms of getting into it?
I mean, the fact that the easy way in is called the 100, that's a little intimidating. It's a big number to start at.
And then for cricket, that's a small number,
Yeah.
So there you go.
I mean, I do. It's funny hearing about your nephews playing it. I do remember enjoying it as a kid in that school setting. Quick cricket, spelt wrong, annoyed me at the time, still does. But
yes,
that seemed more accessible, and running around and being a kind of participant in it, I guess, made sense. I couldn't pinpoint the moment that sort of dropped off for me. And it's interesting as well that you speak about naming a footballer. There is that kind of, and it's a stereotype, and I'm sure there are huge characters within cricket. Some of them go on to present Top Gear and the like, but who have that charisma. But footballers at that time, to me, all I wanted to do was be that footballer on the playground. Whereas I wasn't. I mean, I don't know who would have been a relevant cricketer for me at the time. Nasser Hussain, Ian Botham, they're my two. Darren Goff, Darren Goff for the hairline. I'd say those were my reference points, and whereas with football, I could be Duncan Ferguson and get expelled. I think those may be more of a sort of in the same way that parents would say footballers make terrible role models. As a kid, there was that kind of desire to ape their personality and their, maybe part of that's technique and maybe part of that's just sheer exposure, because we'd watch Match of the Day and we'd have football in a way that sport was consumed in a different way back then. It was still pretty traditional, whereas now, like you say, you can find cricket whenever you want it. It's available to anyone. So maybe that has changed it, but I do think that that early fun and getting to where you guys are now, to a point where, Tom, you sound a bit like Brian Cox talking about space with like idiosyncrasies, and I was taken in. I was into it. I was like, that sounds really cool and exciting, but also so beyond my realm of understanding that I kind of go, all right, cool, I'm just going to look at my phone then. It's too much. So there will be that point in the middle where you can maybe sort of stop someone going down the path that I did and just sort of looking the other way.
Have you ever been to the cricket? Have you ever been with Tom or?
No, I've not. That's episode 5, I think.
Well, I think that's a great way in. Like when me and my girlfriend would I think within about 3 or 4 months of going out with each other, I took her to the cricket, and it wasn't like she fell in love with it or anything, but she got it. She was like, right, now I get why you love it. I get why you work in it and you're kind of immersed in it. And I get the main thing, I suppose, like I get why it relaxes you as opposed to football.
I think the main thing you need to enjoy a day at the cricket is an interest in picnics as well. If you've got that nailed down, you're laughing. I think also we can't really ignore the fact that it is a great time to get into the England men's test team. And Adam and I, hitting my microphone, Adam and I kind of texted this morning, and I said, there've been some developments over the weekend in the Women's World Cup, but also in the England New Zealand series, which obviously culminated this morning. He asked if you should do some research. I said no. We'll try and give you a little summary. So if there is a way of explaining what exactly happened in the last 5 days, Tommy, where would you start?
In layman's terms, right? Let's think about it. Okay, so
there's a bat and a ball.
Right, 22 blokes. There's some grass. It was great. There was a lot of beer. No, so God, it's so. I'm guessing. Do you know about the New England coach and captain, Adam, like Brendan McCullum? Okay, so Brendan McCullum. I think this will add like a nice sense of drama and storytelling to it. Brendan McCullum is a Kiwi. He's from New Zealand. England are currently touring New Zealand. Since Brendan McCullum has took over the England men's test team, they have pretty much destroyed everyone in their path in a way that I would compare. I've been saying this quite a lot lately, but the only thing I can compare it to in terms of shaking up and almost reprogramming a whole sport is when Pep Guardiola came in at Barcelona. Sorry for the football analogy again, but what happened then was, I mean, I was obsessed with Pep Guardiola before he became Manchester City's manager. And now I despise him, of course.
On principle, yeah.
Yeah. And football is pathetic, and we have short memories in that sport, which is, part of the
I
reason.
love it.
But yeah, what he's done is it's kind of unseen, unheard of. It's like attacking cricket, and they're playing basically England's strengths are short ball cricket. We've got loads of big hitters, and what we've done is that's kind of transpired. I mean, it was almost glaring us in the face all along, but it's like, why not play the test game, the long game, the traditional game in this non-traditional way where we just go out and whack the ball. If we lose, we lose. If we get out, we get out. Which has just led to some really exciting cricket. I say really, that I didn't sound excited enough. It's led to like the most revolutionary, incredible Pep Guardiola-esque attacking cricket that has never been seen. They've kind of rewrote all the rule books, and then so I think they'd won before this test. They'd won 10 out of 11 tests in the past less than a year since Brendan McCullum's took over, and this test particular. It was to in and throw in. I'm not even going to bother explaining following on because
No,
that's even over,
we'll get there. We'll get
over
there.
my head sometimes, the way it's employed and stuff. But basically, it got to the final day, and England needed what looked like too much to win. So what was it, Tom? About 288, I think we were
I
chasing,
think that's about right.
or 255. I don't know. I remember it being two numbers,
Yeah.
but anyway, it was a lot. England were getting bowled out, weren't doing very well, and until Joe Root and the captain Ben Stokes, probably our two best players, certainly with the bat, took over, got England back into a winning position to the extent where you're like, oh my God, they're going to do this again. This is Brendan McCullum, Baz Ball, as people call it, because his nickname's Baz.
Nice, I like that.
And then it got to, so they needed about 50, 60 runs to win. Ben Stokes gets out. We've got one good batter left. The rest are bowlers who aren't very good at batting. So then it's Joe Root and Ben Foakes, who are both very good batters. Joe Root gets out on 95, just missing out on his century. And then we're left to the bowlers and Ben Foakes. Ben Foakes then gets out, and then we're left only to the bowlers. And basically, it goes right to the wire. And England, who look like they're about to win with our two worst two bowlers who are not very good batters. One of them, my friend Jimmy Anderson, and
just throw that in there.
yeah, not really friends. A bloke I've met 5 times, but and it gets down to them. It's just like it kept tossing and turning for the whole 5 days, basically. And in New Zealand won. They got Jimmy Anderson out, with England only needing 1 run to win. So
wow, okay.
there's about 600-700 runs scored back. So there's like 1,200-1,400 runs accumulatively over the past few days, and England lost by 1 run, which I think has only happened, or 2 runs, 1 run, 2 runs. It's only happened like this is like the second time in the sport or something. It's happened.
Wow. Okay.
There you go. There's a summary. It was longer than
I mean, that was amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm quite impressed with myself.
You
Yeah.
did very well. Yeah. I think I can't tell whether it's kind of endearing and whether it kind of gets people excited about it. That the idea of a game lasting 5 days and scoring, over 1,000 runs and it coming down to 1 run, or whether it's just like
Off-putting.
Off-putting, at least people thinking, oh well, it's all a bit pointless, wasn't it?
Adam's the man to ask, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, the 5-day thing. I mean, I'm talking in very generalised terms here, but obviously, 5 days of exhilarating. If this is high octane cricket that was very entertaining to watch, high octane of any sport, then I can buy into that, and fine margins. That's always exciting. I guess, yeah. If I was taking a step back and I was thinking, do do I now in my life buy into a working week as a spectator? That's a bit trickier, but I can imagine as two people who, and obviously lots of others, who are really invested in what's happening. That's great. That's like more of what you enjoy, and it's been taken to the wire. So I
Do
can
you do
see
you
that.
find like the T20, like the 3 or 4 hour? If you were to go to a cricket game, do you think you'd rather go to like one day of a good test match between like England, let's say an Ashes test match between England and Australia, or would you prefer to go to like a T20 where it lasts like the whole, it's a Friday night and it's 3 or 4 hours
You get a result.
and you get a result? Yeah.
I mean, the result side of it, because I've not really got a horse in the race. I guess that's less important to me. I mean, I think for me, I guess the only comparison I have would be as, say, an English person going to watch baseball in the US, which obviously there's not really the option of a kind of shorter game, but like having the experience would come first for me as opposed to the result. So
Yeah.
if there was exciting things to watch and it was done at a certain pace, whether that was over a whole day or just a whole evening, I guess the end result wouldn't really matter much to me. But I guess if I was on the flip side of that, if I was sat on day 3 and not a lot was happening, and I'd sort of leave it and go, okay, well, there's another 2 days of this, and
Yeah.
I might check on it.
Might being the operative word.
Yeah, and it's just a thing that happened, like going to watch like an Amdram performance that one of your neighbours is in. That would be that. Yeah, that side of it doesn't appeal to me as much, but it would be interesting because it's a sport that I played when very young and sort of aware of some of the rules. If someone said to me, "This is how it should be played. This is the," as you say, the kind of Pep Guardiola, the total football of cricket, total cricket, bad word, wouldn't it? How it should be done. It's really exciting. It's gung ho. It's high adrenaline. That would be interesting to see, because my experience of it, even if other people have been actively engaged with it, is as kind of the passive activity that you described earlier, where it's sort of just something there, a bit like sort of other sports are for me at certain times. If the snooker's on, sorry. It's just the same, isn't it? It's just balls and sticks, isn't it? So it's just the same.
Balls and wood. Snooker's great though.
Yeah.
I don't sit down and watch it, but I do always say to people, like, surely Ronnie O'Sullivan has to be not just on well, I mean, skill and talent and ability. Like, he's arguably the greatest sports person Britain's ever produced, but on, like we were talking about before with you know Freddie Flintoff, or there's a surplus in football, especially in the 90s, of great characters. Eric Cantona, Roy Keane for me as a Manchester United fan. But Ronnie O'Sullivan, like, oh my God, like, sometimes one person can sell a sport, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I had my first experience of seeing live snooker a couple of months back, and it just so happened to be on the day that Ronnie O'Sullivan was playing. And it is kind of magical. I think snooker, similar to cricket, has that kind of slightly hypnotic, soporific quality where you just kind of, it draws you in and you find yourself in a bit of a stupor, just kind of watching it. In terms of maybe the shorter format of the game being a weigh-in for Adam, something else that's happened in the cricket world last few days, Australia's women winning the T20 World Cup again. I'll just give you a rundown of what they've been up to in the last few years. They've won 6 of 8 T20 World Cups. Since 2018, have won 3 T20 World Cups, 1 ODI World Cup, and the Commonwealth Games. Their ODI team, so that's One Day International, Adam, had a 26 game winning streak, which is immense. Talking about Ronnie O'Sullivan kind of like dominating a sport, it is immense. Is there a point where that becomes a bit boring?
To me or to Adam?
Well, both, I guess. I mean, is there a point where a dominance goes less from being impressive and more to just being a little bit predictable? And is it actually good for the game?
I think the only people who enjoy that sort of dominance, and I know as a Man United fan, is the fans of that team. For everyone else, it's awful. It's boring, and but excuse me, sorry about that. Yeah, they're ridiculous, aren't they? And I saw someone say, on Twitter, I can't remember who it was, but I can't remember if it was just someone I knew or a cricket journalist, but someone said the gap's shortening. It might have been one of the players, actually, one of the women's cricket players. And I was like, yeah, but is it? They won again. And as soon as players retire from that team, it seems like they have a backstock of players ready, like Talia McGrath, like coming in the past couple of years. And then she looks better than what came before her. So obviously, England women won the World Cup was that 2017? Was it 17? Or
2016, 2017.
yeah, around then.
Yeah.
And that was an anomaly, really. And I mean, it's incredible that they achieved it, but I find it personally boring. But like I said just now, I'm probably a bit of a hypocrite because I grew up a Man United fan in the 90s and 2000s, where me and my brother say about this actually, and I'm sure the good, I suppose the good thing for the neutral or for fans of other team with the United thing is that it ended, and I guess there's always the hope that great dynasties come to an end, but I just can't see that happening right now with the Australian women's cricket team. And I don't know if that's because I would have thought, I don't know the facts and figures on it. I would have thought India and England, who are, like the men in the men's game, the other two contenders, that they are the big three. I would have thought the funding, especially with India, is similar, if not maybe more money being pumped into it. So I don't know if it's just something in the genes or if it's just a crop of the last 10 years. They've just been producing incredible player after incredible player. But I can't see it coming to an end anytime soon, but it probably will because that happens in sport. It kind of moves in cycles. And the women's game, probably before this great Australian team, wasn't like, I'm as guilty as anyone. It wasn't known by many people. Like, as I didn't know, I don't know many women's cricketers before 2010. And it just so happens that the great era of women's cricket, where it's really coming to the fore and there's big crowds for it, that sadly it's the Australians who are on top.
Is there a constant presence within that team that's kind of is there an Alec Ferguson, for want of a better comparison? Is there a consistent coach or?
Well, no, because the thing is, we nabbed England men's white ball team nabbed their coach Matthew Mott, and he's done great things. England men's won the T20 World Cup at the later part of last year. So I don't know how many. Do you know how many coaches they've had, Tom, in that time? It wasn't Matthew Mott the whole time, I don't think. So
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. But
I think no. I think it's more the players, and that's probably a general rule about cricket. Like the players are more important. So yeah, they've had a great core of players, and then like I said before, with the likes of McGrath coming in, sort of just on Football Manager, like regens.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it also speaks to something just kind of very Australian. They're just ruthless, and that kind of mentality is just seeps into everything they do.
Yeah, and I respect it so much, massively. Like in hindsight, the great Australian team of the 90s and 2000s, because I grew up watching them, and I hated them. I hated them as much as I hated Liverpool or Manchester City or Leeds. I hated them that much. But now, in hindsight, I look back and I just like, I have nothing but respect for them. And a lot of them are pretty nice blokes. And I can happily watch a documentary about them now in hindsight. It's the same with Luis Suarez in football. Like I despised that man. But then when he left for Barcelona, I was like, I mean, he's mint. He's so
Yeah.
good.
I won't go. I won't go that far with you, but yeah, but I agree though. There's that removal when someone stops being a direct competitor or the barrier between you and success. It's you can start to appreciate them and sit and see kind of who's world class.
You don't admit it. It's very reluctant. But
as an Everton fan in the 90s watching Manchester United, it was difficult. Full stop.
And it's going to be difficult for the next 10 years for everyone else.
Exactly.
Now, Tommy, we can't let you go without talking about Church Party.
Oh, bless you.
Because we've got a couple of new singles out. Back in the Room.
Yeah.
Banging, in it. It's great.
Oh, thank you.
What's the story with that?
So the story with Church Party was it's good actually, because what I've been doing today, when I should have been doing like my usual work as a freelancer, instead I've just been emailing record labels and then finding all the people on Twitter and Instagram who I said to my bandmate, I said to the lads in like the WhatsApp chat, I was like, me being a fucking idiot on social media for the past 10 years has finally paid off, because I've got there's one of my mates who I've not seen him in a couple of years, but I met him through a former friend of mine he used to go out with. I won't go into that, but anyway, he used to be a music journalist and he loved the Church Party. And I went on his profile today, and then I saw he works at. I knew he worked for a record label, and my brother really wants to try and get us on Dirty Hit, which 1975 and Wolf Alice are on. I think it's the 1975's label, and he works for Dirty Hit. So I messaged him before, and he was like, "Oh yeah, send it over, man. Like we'll have a listen in the office." That's not to say we're getting signed by Dirty Hit.
Exclusive! Wow, we did it.
I wish. We'll see. You never know. But so we were banned from 2014 to 2016. We split up because, not for any reason, we didn't fall out. We remained friends throughout like the sort of fallow years. And then I stopped drinking in 2021, went sober, stopped drinking and doing drugs. And I picked up a guitar again for like that. I think I was just bitter about I was in some bands, and like this was always the one I loved the most, because it was the one where it was the music I wanted to make. I've been in other bands that were more successful, where I was a bass player and we were signed and stuff like that. But yeah, when I started picking up the guitar again after it had just been gathering dust, then I just started writing songs again, and the whole wild man myth of needing inebriation to create great art or songwriting is bullshit, because I built up so many experiences through addiction that like I can still draw from them. I can still write about those sort of things. And so yeah, we were like, let's do it properly this time. If we're going to do it, let's not do it half-assed. Let's not self-produce, because when we used to produce it ourselves, we went way over the top. We'd have like 46 guitar layers, like like just that's cocaine for you, as Noel Gallagher said. Sorry about that. You can edit that out, but
No.
as Noel Gallagher said,
I think it's in the public domain, that, so
yeah,
you're okay.
Yeah.
Another scoop.
Yeah,
Band from 90s does drugs.
Yeah, so I think Noel Gallagher said the same thing when he made Be Here Now, and he was like, those first two albums were so good, and that one was just sort of self-indulgent and very like cocaine-y sort of thing. And I think we went through that because we had no one sort of telling us when to stop and when to take things out. So anyway, we got in a guy, Bob Cooper, who's a good mate, and he's a really good producer. He's produced some great bands over the years. And we just, paid money, went and stayed over, did it properly. Written about 10, 15 songs in probably less than a year, which is probably the amount we wrote in like 3 years last time. And yeah, so now we put it on. We haven't put it on Spotify or anything yet. We just uploaded it to Amazing Radio, and I think they've played between the two songs in like a week and a half. They've played them like 36 times. It's on like 7 of their playlists. And then, yeah, we've played 2 sold out shows since we've been back in Manchester. We've got some exciting shows coming up in April, which will be announced soon. And now we're sending it out to labels, which we didn't do last time. I'm speaking to PR people to, try and get it heard, because people are. My girlfriend's dad is Will Sargent, the guitarist from Echo and the Bunnymen, and
Fun.
he famously, in her words, doesn't like anything. And I was like, can you send in the EP or like show it or have it on in the background, but just not specific. If he doesn't like it, you don't have to tell me. It'll break my heart too much, because me and him really get on. Anyway, she actually just sent it to him when she was at mine, and I didn't know. And he rang me on a Saturday morning while she was lying in. I was just having a coffee. He's like, fucking hell, this is actually pretty good, lad. And he was like, yeah, he said he wants to help out and that. So I could finally become the Nepo baby I've always been.
Nepo my bunny man, there you go.
How have I not thought of that? That phone call a week and a half ago. Damn. But yeah, so it's going well. This time it seems to like really be going well. And yeah, like you said, Back in the Room, I love that song. Like, that was one of them where I just wrote all the parts. Like, I wrote all the guitar parts and the lyrics and everything in about 10 minutes, which doesn't always happen, but you got to take them when they come to
you. We were talking before you came on. I think it's, it captures you from the start, but then I think the chorus like really switches it up, and it's just it was a nice surprise to me as well. And I just
Thank you, lads.
big
Honestly,
fan.
It means a lot.
I want to hear more. It was fantastic.
Thank you, bro.
Nice. I had church party and cricket, and I was like, oh, I don't know if this is good for me. This, but
Sunday afternoon in the 1930s.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, lads. That means a lot. Cheers.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having us on. Thank you for coming on.
You boys,
it's been a joy.
It was an honor to be the first guest as well, and I love the concept. And yeah, you're both lovely lads and very funny. So thank you.
Oh, bless you. Quickly, if you had one way to sell cricket to someone new, what should Adam do?
The 100.
100. Yeah.
No. One way to sell cricket. Okay. God, this is what I've not looked at any of my answers so far, but did I write it? Okay. Let's just say, okay, the one way to sell it would be I don't drink anymore, but that's because I love drinking too much. So I have nothing against drinkers or drinking. If you like a beer, if you like a nice, slow sort of steady drunkenness and just the nicest, friendliest atmosphere, just go to a day at the test, or like I said before, a Friday night, a T20 match. Doesn't even have to be an England match. You could go for like a tenner to county cricket, usually pretty full, and just go live. I think going live and seeing, well, not even seeing, when a ball's bowled at 90 miles per hour, and then you realize, fucking, like they're throwing a rock at each other, basically. They're bouncing a rock at each other's heads. And I always say this to people, it is actually a much more physical sport than like football. And maybe not rugby, but it's terrifying. I've been hit in the head with a cricket ball. It is one of the scariest things when there's some 6'5" lad running up to you off 30 yards and he bounces you. Like there's nothing scarier. There's no slide tackle that's sort of worse than that. So yeah, just go and see a ball being bowled at 90 miles per hour, have a few beers, go with your mates, and whether you're into it or not, like that's the best way to find out. And maybe if you don't enjoy that, then I don't want to say this on the first episode, but maybe there's no hope for you then.
There's no hope. Yeah, that's the end of it. Well, it's
I
good
mean,
to know that the concept still has legs. We've still got some work to do.
yeah. I mean, I can't enjoy it too much straight away. I mean, if I go next week, then we're out, aren't we? I've had a lovely day out and ruined a podcast. So, but I think that answer will take some beating because there was a lot of sense there. Steady day drinking is a thing.
It's the best
So,
time drinking.
yeah.
If I could go back to like one day of drinking, it wouldn't be some mad night out. Like, and I don't want to drink. You know, I'm not. If my mum and dad are listening, which they probably are, they listen to everything I do. Bless them. This isn't to say I want to drink again, but if I were to have a swan song with drinking, it would be at the cricket and just like a nice slow 6 or 7 pints throughout the day. Perfect with the sun shining. Mwah, chef's kiss.
Can I ask one last question just to derail things a little?
Go for
If you were at the cricket for a day out, what would be your tipple of choice? Not obviously, you know, is it a non-alcoholic beer? Is it a
Oh yeah, no,
free?
yeah. So, well, Lancashire. I'm a member of Lancashire. I go to like as many games as I can. But last summer, to be fair, I was working quite a lot bit last summer, so I was in the press box quite a lot. However, on the trips I went to Edgbaston, Headingley. Can't remember where else I went to last summer. The Oval. There is actually now some, as opposed to even the year before, and this is kind of the way it's going with all non-alcoholic beer. The year before there was like I can't remember anything. Like I don't think they even had options, and I can't remember Lancashire having options, but apparently they have Heineken Zero now. But if you go to Headingley, if anyone's based in Yorkshire, excuse me, they have like a really really good selection of non-alcoholic beers. They have the Brooklyn one, San Miguel,
Nice.
and the Brooklyn one is. I went with a mate last summer, and I gave it him as if it was his beer, and he had a sip, and he was like, "That is a really good lager." That I was like, "It's mine. That's the non-alcoholic one."
Yeah,
It's one of those ones that
yeah,
actually
it's a nice one, Matt. Yeah.
beer. So
I'm just trying to get us a sponsor. That's the only reason I asked. No, I do appreciate a non-alcoholic beer review because it's good to have the option. I do enjoy that Brooklyn one.
the Brooklyn one, and the other one that I always recommend. That when I first got sober, I heard my girlfriend showed me a podcast of Lee Mack talking about why he stopped drinking. And he wasn't an alcoholic or anything. It was just basically like, he'd had enough of it. And he said, the best thing about drinking is that first pint, the first 20 minutes. So if you can replace that with a non-alcoholic one, you get that out of the way and you still get that same buzz, then you're laughing. But the beer he said to do it with was Lucky Saint. Lucky Saint is, really.
And you get it on draft as well, can't you? So yeah, you can exactly. Yeah,
That's the other one. Yeah, at Edgbaston. Go to Edgbaston. They do Lucky Saint on draft, which is fantastic.
Okay, sold.
Isn't
Maybe.
But if I were you, I'd just have a proper beer.
Yeah.
Well, Tommy, thank you.
Thank you, boys.
Yeah, it's been what a dream start, eh?
I love that. It was great.
Cheers, man.
Thank you, lads.
Thanks.
All right.
Cheers. Bye.